Welcome, everybody, to Thursday, November 9th, Litchfield Energy Committee meeting. Would you please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. So, call to order. So, roll call of members is the first item on the agenda. So, Sam Terrell, I'm the chair. Let's start on with Fred.
Fred French.
Yep.
Matt Shoemaker.
Kimberly Queen and Selectmen's Rep.
Kim Kleiner, Town Administrator.
Joe Driscoll from the Mitchell Group, we're Towns Council.
Karen White, Finance Director.
And would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, I'm Emily Manns of Standard Power.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna take approval of the minutes and put that at the end of the list. So we'll start with the review of the survey for the community power. Do you have the results of the survey?
I don't have the results.
Oh.
I thought I was taking feedback on the plan.
Okay. Okay, so we don't have the.
I apologize. I've had a really busy.
No, that's okay.
I had
So
a meeting
We're all
before this.
stretched.
I just realized I don't have what I need to even open my computer.
Okay, so did you?
Let me. Well, actually, I might be able to look. Hold on. Keep talking for a sec. I might be able to bring something up.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring up the fact that I found that I went onto the town website to take the survey, and I found some discrepancies with the physical surveys that were put in town hall. So when you guys are tabulating your surveys, I'm not sure how you're going to handle that because some of the questions, some of the answers aren't matching up. Do you happen to know about how many people filled out the survey?
I'm going to have to take your comments back to the team.
Okay. Okay, so we'll move
I
on.
apologize, because it's just my keypad stopped working and I don't have my mouse, so.
Oh, no.
I mean, yeah, I suppose if I could borrow a mouse, I could probably look at a couple more things, but why don't we keep moving and then I'll get the information to you.
Okay,
Right,
okay,
So
hopefully.
I believe that the surveys that are physically in town hall are correct.
Yes, that's what I
Because
saw.
I sent the surveys that were completed here, over to Teresa, and those are correct. I can tell that those are the ones.
Yeah, I saw the ones physically are correct, but the ones online were not, didn't have the changes that we made.
I can't answer that, so
Yeah.
I'll get it. I
Okay.
mean, it sounds like they weren't made, and so I'll make sure that gets to Teresa and we'll
Yeah,
report back to you how many were responded to already.
okay. Okay, so we'll just move on to the review of the draft community power plan. So we'd made some comments before. I have a few things that I think are necessary for me to support this plan. The first one being that the default plan should be the basic, cheapest plan. So if we can have that made, then we can move forward from that.
Okay, and would you support changing your recommendation depending on public input?
I had said that I would, but now knowing that the survey that went out didn't have the changes, the online survey, I'm not sure the results are gonna be really valuable.
There's also a question
So
about
I
the
think-
ability to go down too, right, versus going up, which was one of the reasons for wanting to start with the default.
Yeah, we wanna start with the basic,
The basic.
cheapest, and then everyone should be allowed to opt up if they want for more renewable energy. But we're not gonna bring people in at level 2 and expect everyone who wants to opt down. I think it makes a lot more sense to start them at the cheapest price, because that's what the people want. If people want the cheapest energy, and if they don't and they want to pay more for renewables, then they can opt up. That just makes the most sense.
But wasn't there also a question in the document about whether you could opt down?
Yeah, I was just curious in it, what is the process to opt down for somebody to do it? Is it just same form as opt up? You just write it down instead, or?
You write it down, you pick up the phone, you can, there's a web thing, it's just a different product
Okay.
to choose. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so without the results of the survey, how should we go about this? I'm gonna be pretty firm and say we should have people start at level 1.
Without without the benefit of the survey,
Yeah.
we've done surveys in, I think we're up to 16 or 17 towns now, and they consistently, people do support renewable energy 80 to 90%, and about 50%, or, you know, a good portion of that is if they don't pay more than they pay today. So both the default and the basic would be competitive with the utility default, and the program is designed to have the default, you know, with or without renewable energy, perform well against the utility default. So we, you know, and I don't like come to late evening meetings to, like, renewable energy is really an important part of what we are providing. So we would, you know, encourage you to get the survey results, do more outreach, really, you know, we often come into communities with committees that think that they're more conservative than they are. Like, you probably have 20 or 25% who want the lowest price in the plan, but the renewable default really does have a lot of support at a low level. I mean, we could, you know, start at 5% or something, but that's about about $1.5 million, so about a tenth of a cent and a half would get you to 5%, or easier to think about. A 10% renewable default adds 0.3 cents to basic price, so it's, and which is about, I think it's $1.80, and I can do that. I'm sure that math is right, but I can confirm that math for you on a monthly bill of 600 kilowatts. So it's, and then a 10% increase is basically increasing the renewable energy in your supply by 50%, or it's not quite 50, it would be like 40%. So it'd go from 23.4% to 33.4%. So again, that's the kind of math that I think, like, you are nodding your head, you understand what I'm saying about increasing. It's a material difference. It's not a trivial difference. It's a material difference. It's something that we think people will value in your program once it's launched, and we don't think it's something people would actually be against.
So you talk about the results of your previous surveys, and that's with the survey that I have in my hand here. And the question that you're talking about is question 5, and it has, these are the ones that we changed when we approved the survey, because the only option is no, I would not like more renewables. The others are all, yes, I would like renewables, and I'm willing to pay the same, or I'm willing to pay a little more, or I want 100%. And it just seemed a little, you know, people who wanted to pay the least amount of money for their electricity didn't have a good option here, because they're not necessarily against renewable. They don't say, no, I would not like more renewable, which is the option. So everyone, you know, then defaults for, okay, yeah, I would like extra renewable if I can pay about the same as I'm paying today. And that's why you're getting the majority in that category, because the other one is not true. It's not that people are against renewables, so they don't pick that option.
If what I'm understanding is correct, the baseline is matching the default of the current supplier. So, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is my first day here. So,
Oh, sure, yeah.
So-
I'm not
so-
following you yet. but-
meaning at baseline, you were talking about being competitive with current rates by EverSource, essentially, right?
Yes.
So this was not about saving beyond EverSource supply rates. This is about providing at the rates that EverSource is, but incorporating renewable. That's the main focus of what we're trying to achieve.
No, we do provide savings. The programs do, the way we do because of the flexibility we have in going into the market, having a longer contract length, bundling customers, we do better than and that's the default is always, we plan for the default product having savings relative to Eversource across the program, and we guarantee them on launch. We don't launch without savings. So the default, whether or not it has renewable energy in, has savings. And then the question is whether the basic is an option or the default. That's the,
Gotcha.
but there's two products that have savings relative to the default. Well, at least two. On our launch, actually, the 50 and 100% products had savings, but now they don't. Now they're.
Thank you.
I do, so, yeah, I do remember vaguely the word launch, right? That you guaranteed it would be
Yes.
lower. So can you reiterate that for the public and us? What's the length of that time where you are guaranteeing a lower rate?
So the default rate, the utility default rate changes every 6 months at February 1st and August 1st. So the length of time when we're guaranteeing the savings would depend on when we launch. Obviously, if we launch in April, it would be 4 months, or, and if June, it would be 2 months. But the broker, we have experience doing this for commercial, industrial, municipal customers. We don't go underwater easily for the relative to the utility default. We're not writing contracts that are bad the very next contract, for instance. We don't know exactly what the utility default will do, but we write contracts looking at longer term costs, and there are forecasts of that, and that's why, there are programs that are popular and resilient and continue to work. And basically, we don't launch you. If we say we're gonna launch in, April or something, and then the prices, we can't get a good price, then we wait for the next buying opportunity. We do just wait.
But you are guaranteeing some 6 months or some months of cheaper rate. You are guaranteeing that?
We guarantee that on launch, yes. So but we can't say 6 months because we don't, like,
'Cause you can
we
launch a
won't know,
month
we
before
only
your
ever.
utility changes.
Right.
Right, we only ever know 6 months of the utility rate, and there are different rules for launching in the first 2 months, which we may be able to do by the time we do, yeah.
So
We can't promise savings after that, though.
And so launch could be 1 or 2 months, right?
It could be,
You're
yes.
saving, and then all of a sudden it goes up, but you're guaranteeing at least 1 month.
Right, and
Somewhere
that's-
in there, 1 month.
Yes, and just think from the customer's perspective, we're guaranteeing the rate for, 24 months, 18, 24, 30 months. So their rate is just done, and then the utility rate is the one that moves up and down.
So
So,
it may become better again,
right, it may become better.
depending
It
on
could-
what happens
it could
each time
bounce,
the
it
utility
could-
dies, yes.
Historically, they've dipped below, but not ever gone up and down, back and forth, but, these are
And-
volatile times, so.
So I think in Standard Power's original, data to us, they showed this with Somerville as an example.
Yes,
Because they started out, they got some savings, it was savings for 6 months. It dropped back down at the utility level, and then when their utilities next buy in February, they got savings again, so it kinda went up and down.
yes, we're looking at long-term savings for the program, and, we always cross our fingers that the utility doesn't get a lucky day. But, that could happen.
So then all the other towns that you've launched in, they consistently track at a lower price than the utility?
So we launched in June with 4 towns. That's our experience in New Hampshire, and their default is 11.47 cents. So compared, Eversource default is 12.59 at the moment. But they launched at 11.47 cents against 20-cent utility rates. So, and Eversource, if you look at your Eversource bill, mine says rates are going up, prepare for winter. So they're predicting that rates are gonna go up, and that's what we're predicting too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a 30-month rate, so we fully expect that rate to be a good rate through, that's December of 2025.
Okay, so my primary goal with all this is to provide the people of Litchfield with the lowest electricity costs we can. So that's why I prefer the level 1 to be the default. Now, if the rest of the board feels differently, we can certainly talk about it, but that's my stance. I'd like to see that in the plan.
Is it a huge difference? Well, it didn't sound like it was.
So the difference is this, I'll say one thing, is that the charge of the committee is to develop a plan with public input. So, just putting that out there. The other difference is that if you go with a basic default and you change your mind, then I would say that's a harder lift than going with a renewable default that has 1% renewable in it at a cost of probably, it wouldn't even be a 1/10 of a cent, it might be a 100th of a cent or something. I can't do the math. I don't know, something like indistinguishable, but call it a green default at an indistinguishable cost to give yourself the space, because people do like and want renewable energy, and,
What do you mean to give yourself the space?
to give the plan, the town, the option to increase renewable energy in the default, should the, public and town want to, because the program, if you add, it's a lot harder lift to do opt-ups than to, have a green default, and as I described, if you add 10%, it increases your renewable energy a lot. Or not town-wide, but program-wide, essentially town-wide.
Okay.
Yeah, so so making the difference, you're kind of making I'm suggesting that making the philosophical choice of having the basic as a default is indistinguishable from the choice of having a green default with 1% renewable energy, but practically or operationally, it gives the future board some flexibility on what to do with the default and how to.
So I thought the default was 10% extra renewables.
So we say 5 to 10%, because as I said, that's like it's between 90 cents or $1.80 on a typical electric bill. That would be the effect of a 5 to 10%. We do have other towns that are considering a basic default, but in their plan, they say 1 to 10%. And then, because we can look at the prices and see what you're getting, also if the default's super close to the the utility default, then of course we would drop it back as well. We would recommend that, so.
But that $1.80, just to put it into perspective, is on a rate that's still far lower.
Right.
Right. So when you're talking
Absolutely.
about, when you're talking, what'd you say, 11 kilowatt cents per hour versus 20, right, at the time that they locked those for in June, that $1.80 is still far below. There's still a substantial savings.
Right. With the green default, you're saying there still is substantial, and there has been for these other towns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah, that
quite.
$1.80 would be on a bill of, again, can I
You
do
said
the math?
600 kilowatt hour.
Yeah, 600, so that can't be 600.
Which was my October. I'm looking at my bill right now. October, I did 603 kilowatt hours.
So
My bill was I don't know what it was that month.
I apologize, I can't do the mental math at the moment, but I can do it.
Yeah, I get the
Yeah,
point.
that it's
It's pretty insignificant, but I just think that.
That's at 10%, so at 1% it would be 18 cents. I'm just saying that the two are, cost-wise, very similar, but, in terms of a planning process and some future flexibility, the one makes a difference.
I guess the only thing I'm not 100% clear on is when you're talking about leaving room to go up and down and the heavy lift component of it. I guess I'm not understanding functionally what you mean by that. I get the concept of we're talking small amounts of money, so it philosophically as global citizens, the reasonable thing to do is say, why can't we do a little bit, for $1.80 or whatever, do some renewable. But in terms of moving within the plan, just so I can understand what you're talking about heavy lift wise, what do you mean by that?
So the question is who has to do the heavy lift when? So if you, so making product choices within the plan, it's not actually a heavy lift. People just don't do it anyway. Most people will be in the default 80 or 90% and they'll never do anything different again. Like, that's really where, people will land. But, so that's, they only have to pick up the phone, but that's not a heavy lift, but it is on the customer. For the plan in the town, if you choose a very low green default, and then want to change it to 5 or 10%, then that'll be a decision on the select board, or, on the committee advising the select board would
So
be
that has to
to.
be at a town level though, to get more renewable included.
Right,
If
this program is at
not-
town level, like this plan and program is all at the town level.
Okay, so I guess that's where I'm still a little foggy, is because what we were talking about was individuals going up and down between
Yeah.
more green versus
Between the
less.
plans.
Right, so
What
when,
she's talking about is a fluctuation within the same plan, setting the range of 1 to 10%
Oh, I see.
in that second plan, not the 50 or the 100.
Oh, I see, okay,
so we can
You were talking
decide
about
what we
moving
want level
between
two
the
to be
plans
at.
themselves
I
as
see.
opposed to
I see.
Yeah.
adding the renewable level in that one plan.
And it wouldn't change, so we'd set a contract, and agree on a renewable level, and by the way, you can participate in a group and make your own choices in that regard. That doesn't affect other things related to this, but, and then that would be for, typically 24 months, some period of time, and then you have a choice again, then there'd be a renewal, and you could make additional choices. So that's the way it would go. It's not like it would change, it wouldn't be dynamic.
But
or something like-
if I understand the levels, right, there's the lowest one, which is no renewable,
Well, it's
Or-
the state
base-
required minimum. of
the state
renewable.
requirement. Then there's the second, which is what we're talking about, where we set something in some sort of range, and then there's 50% and 100%.
Right.
Right. And so you were asking, do we just start everyone at that lowest?
Yeah,
level?
that's my feeling, is we should start everyone at the lowest.
When we're talking about the heavy lift of, we're talking about in that second level of, at a town wide range, going up and down within that level, but going from the basic to the second, and that's not that's just people picking up the phone and calling, right?
Right. The heavy lift is that if the town, if you choose the basic, it's, whether you mean it that way or not, that's a philosophical choice that will be difficult to then,
Get people
reflect
to opt
that,
up.
Because
well, yeah, I
89
mean, as a practice, but people don't opt up.
people don't, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
But what we're talking
So
about
you're,
is-
so we're just, I'm saying they would be happy with a green default and not opt up or
Well, you,
something,
but,
and you're saying that they'd be happier with the lower default, but I'm saying that public input would, is suggesting that they're happiest with the green default.
You're saying they're happier because they're
philosoph-
using more
philosophically.
Yeah.
renewable energy, they're feeling better about
Right.
using more renewables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they have, and the whole plan, like, the plan goes all together, stable rates, low stable rates, and a modest increase in renewable energy.
You said it, long-term plan. Long-term plan. I was asking a question about a short-term plan, what you could guarantee at the start, but
Right.
you're doing long-term contract. I do have a question, and if I'm naive, I apologize. If somebody opts in for the level 2, say the town does, and most people stay on it, you are guaranteeing that there is renewable being, they're drawing it from something renewable, but if they don't have it and they have a default of a lot of level 1, you're just gonna give them the level 1, even though they're paying for the level 2?
No, so, renewable energy, 20-some-odd years ago, all renewable energy resources produce two products. They produce electrons, which aren't green or brown, they can't be distinguished from another electron, and they produce a renewable energy attribute. That's just, so renewable energy is locationally verifiable. There are national, regional, local markets. We could purchase them from rooftop solar. We can, identify whether it's a class one solar, new wind, renewable energy, or an older hydro. They're regulated and identifiable, so the renewable energy in your program is renewable
So they're
energy.
paying the
So
ex-
you're asking,
Direct payments
is
to-
there enough supply?
Well, I'm paying the extra
There's no-
$1.80, thinking I'm doing
Yeah.
good for the planet.
Right.
And
Right.
they have an extra supply over here of
It's
level
like me putting
one.
my recycling, it's like me putting my
Right.
recycling out and seeing my recycling company throwing it in the.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that they think they're
Great
paying for that,
question.
they're getting it.
Thank you, yes, and actually, the other thing is, so you purchase the RECs and retire them, that's this sort of language. And
you
the other word that you would hear is decoupling, so they've decoupled the electrons, the production of electricity from the renewable energy attribute. And that's all renewable energy resources generate RECs, whether people, like, realize the value of them or not, but. So no, those are retired in your program name, and if we say they're national E-RECs, then those are wind RECs in Texas. But if you choose New Hampshire Class 1 RECs, those are new renewable, solar, mostly solar, solar resources, but, also there's other ones in New Hampshire Class 1, wind. I think there's renewable gas too, I can't remember.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Appreciate it.
All right, so this
Any-
it makes a lot more sense to me now. So
Yeah,
what
okay.
we're really talking about is you're gonna save money because their rates are substantially lower than the utility rates, and then we're talking about a philosophical choice, which is what they're coming out and asking people to do, which is I think a reasonable thing, saying people aren't going to recognize if you set them at the default. People aren't going to recognize a major difference between if they started at the basic. We're not costing. It's not like it's like 5 kilowatt cents an hour difference, right? So ultimately they're saying, we would encourage you to make the philosophically responsible choice on behalf of your town, recognizing that you're still providing them with savings. That
And I guess from and again, you're advising you, so I'm taking some liberties, but the New Hampshire minimum plateau, so it's at 23.4% right now, and it plateaus at 25%. So to the extent you want to make any contribution after that, if the state, basic changes, then you could make a different decision again. But that's, part of our calculus as well, is why we think that in the future, if you don't see it right now, that you may want that flexibility.
and so you said it's like a 30-month, 24 to 30-month.
Three levels.
So it depends on when you start. There are a few sort of basic things about brokering, and one of them is that a lot of contracts will end in November, December, January, to capture a lot of summer months, and then they'll renew for 24 months. So we say 24 months because that's the renewal, like typical, but you can start and end any time. And we get strips of prices, so you can see what it means to start and end at different times, but.
And
That's why it's
sorry, I
typical.
did not
So
read the contract.
Yeah, so it could be like 18, if we started in June, actually that first group started in June, so they had a choice between like 17 and 30 months. Like, 1.5 years to December or so, and then or 2.5 years, and they just chose the longer one, that's why they have a.
And so for the full 30 months, they're at 11 kilowatt.
Right, and yes,
And so if utilities came down to 7 cents, they're stuck at the 11 for the 30 months.
yes, and then customers can come and go, so.
Right.
Okay,
They
and
Yeah.
and that's right, and that's where we get,
They
you
can
can
come out.
terminate, you
Right,
can
you're knocked
leave.
out,
Right,
right,
Gotcha.
yeah.
and then knocked back in if the utility price.
And that's
goes
on
back
any,
up.
that's at any given cycle, you can, at the end of the cycle, you can,
Monthly
After the
cycles,
meeting,
right.
after the meter read, right? There's a period,
but we're talking,
Right.
I mean, we're talking short.
On that,
periods.
on that
Yeah.
monthly meter read
Yeah.
cycle, depends on when your bill
right,
is read, or your meter is read.
So how does, there's bidding that goes on here, so what are all the movable parts that could be there? I mean, do the proposals include those different lengths of time and those different amounts of renewables, or is that the stuff that this committee makes a decision on and says, here is what we would like to see 5% in 30 months or something? Like, how does that work?
So, as a practical matter, we are bidding on the electrons, and then we add the renewable costs, we add the renewable energy certificates. So, so that's somewhat simpler.
Okay.
And then we look at, the committee, well, we'd work with the committee and the town on when you would about like to start. And then we start to go to bid, competitive bid, blind, and then just see what the suppliers say. Oh, well, if you start a month later, this would happen. Or if you add a month or two. Well, usually they give us, so the start is kind of, we tell them when to start and then they start. But then, and then they do strips of prices. So, I mean, they don't literally do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They'll do, 12, 24, and then show us the hot spots in the middle that would be attractive. And then it's a blind bid, so they come back and if, I've only been through the process, well, essentially for community power, I've only been through it intimately once, but at one point, we did go back to one supplier and say, you're half a cent out of the market. Like it is a blind bid, but on indicative pricing, this is like sort of weeks before we actually took bids. We, told them to sharpen their pencils and they said, well, maybe our risk factors are wrong. And they, went and did that. And so we had a competitive bid right up to the time when we accepted the bid at noon on, and then that process, so then we do an indicative pricing day, an official day, where all the group members, if Litchfield goes with other towns, it's a 2-hour window where your representative is there. We introduce the pricing that's available, and then you have a few days, like typically that would be a Thursday, and then the next Tuesday or Wednesday would be bid day. So it's not a public meeting, but the select board could hold a private meeting in between to look at indicative pricing, and if there's a lot of change from that indicative pricing, then the bid fails. We don't tolerate, like the suppliers can't come back and say, oops, we, missed something or something like that. We consider indicative pricing their final pricing, except maybe they could, do a little bit better and compete, push for the end. So that's what it's like.
And again, the lawyer, so I'm kind of worried about just sort of the impacts on the town when I read the plan. What really is the town's role after this plan's up and running? I mean, I see references in there where they're, in the data aspect, they're referred to as the aggregator, and therefore they have to protect the data. I mean, do they need to be worried about having the appropriate infrastructure to do that in-house, or is that not going to be something they have to worry about?
So the way the towns that we're working with have handled it is they have assigned us as their agent, and we accept the data, and then we pass it to the supplier. So we wouldn't, as a practical matter, have that go directly, because we want to have a look at the data for quality assurance just to make sure. And so the towns, I think along the way, some have taken possession and then put it on, but that's the way we're moving forward, and that would be an option. So the town wouldn't have possession of the data at all. I mean, we give you reporting. You can know anything you want about the data. It is your
but it's
data.
the
We could even
confidential
give it
data.
to you.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the right to have the data. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. But in terms of in the normal course of things, you wouldn't handle it unless you.
Yeah, I mean,
requests.
there's the statutory requirements of protecting that data, and I don't think they have those systems in-house to be able to do that. That's kind of where my
Right.
concerns were.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of other references to what the town's role will be in terms of education moving forward. I mean, like, I'm just trying to understand how much of a role they have outside of, considering a contract every time that it comes out, that kind of thing.
So we've been editing, and I'm not sure what state Litchfield's plan is in, but we've had comments from other towns, and we've been changing some of those references from town to program. Because that's clearer for however you structure yours, whether it's this committee dissolves after the plan goes, or whether you keep going. It sounds like you're an energy committee, right? So you'd probably still advise the select board. So then the program refers to basically the consultant does all the work, and is supervised by the select board, but with the advice of the energy committee. So we could call, so we can, if you had specific suggestions where you had concerns, but let's look at it
Yeah,
and
sure.
call it program, because that is, I think it's almost more accurate, honestly.
Yeah, there's just a variety of spots where it says, you know, town representatives will do X, and it's like,
Right, and
that
certainly
the
about
consultant?
outreach, that
Yeah,
sort of thing,
yeah.
yeah, no, it can definitely say, we do it, you know, under the direction of
Okay.
either the energy committee or the select board, actually.
You keep saying the word consultant, right? Who is the consultant?
We are, the
There.
Standard Power,
And how do we pay you, or is it, how do we pay you?
yes. We get a mil per kilowatt hour in the energy rate. So that's 1/10 of a cent per kilowatt hour.
And that also covers the, like, if you're the data aggregator and you're receiving all the data, you're not there's no additional fees to us
Correct.
in the consulting agreement. It's
Correct.
literally the only place you're ever gonna collect from us is in the mill rate.
We collect from the supplier.
Right.
So there's no transaction, yeah, there's no, yep, and that includes everything. And then the supplier includes the costs, of like the mailers, that sort of thing, that's in their, the electric services agreement, so there's no costs to the town.
Even for the data that he was just talking about.
That's- yeah.
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, there's no added costs.
Hey, you've all probably reviewed this more than I have. In terms of, is there like a minimum level of usership that you need in order, because I mean, understanding that if the rates, if it went from 11, if we're locked at 11 and it goes to 6, right? I understand that a lot of people don't look at their electric bills, but if they do, and if 80% of the population said, nope, we're going to buy it on our own, is there like a threshold at which the town, at a town level, have some sort of liability?
So the town does not have liability in the way we've structured your plan. And the program, the supplier takes all the risks. So if the program loses 80% of its people, the program still honors the rates as, and I'll just say, for one thing, it's in the plan that unless there's a regulatory change, which they couldn't anticipate, and that would affect all electric supply customers. The supplier can weather like 1 6-month period where the rate goes down and there's sort of some disruption, but plans do go bankrupt. I mean, if it went down to 6 and stayed there, I haven't been through that, but I'm sure there is a reason when the town would decide to terminate the program and return everyone to default service and, at the low rate.
What were the
So-
termination provisions in there? Do you know offhand? Or maybe you know because you.
Pull it up.
I
I don't think they were, let's see.
See, even when we had 6-cent rates, that was at a particular point in time, kind of, and then they went crazy. So anybody who could hang on through the volatility did fine. Now, there were, suppliers in Texas that went bankrupt. Like, there are supply disruptions that are disruptive, but the point, we try not to do that. That's not what we're planning on doing. We work with suppliers that we, are confident in. But also the customers, the worst that happens is they go back to default. So we,
Termination stuff, I think, is all tied to when the contract ends. I don't think there's like a,
other than the supplier, like,
yeah, like sort of a sky is falling, oh no, kind of moment.
yeah.
But again, let's just, if it drops, 80% of the people leave, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter,
Nothing
no.
impacts any
The
of us.
customers
Like,
don't know, the customers who stay in don't see a different rate.
Well, the
There's
customers that
no-
stay in are paying more than everyone else is anyways at that point, right? So if
Well,
the
that's
plan
true,
goes
right,
bankrupt, they're
right,
like,
right,
oh. So-
right.
And that they're in it because they're not watching their electric bills. So
Yeah.
then they're just like, oh, thank God, my
Now-
plan
now
was
they're in a
bankrupt.
good
So now someone.
Right.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really no risk on this. Like I'm not seeing, other than functionally in the contract with some of the things that we need to hash out so that we don't end up with these duties that could be
Yeah,
misinterpreted. Practically speaking, there's really no risk to doing something like this.
I don't think there's any risk. I see no risk. I think it's a great program.
And really the only risk I was looking at is the prices if they go up above the default. So, and you're saying that basically has never happened.
Which prices?
The prices in the plan go above the utilities basic.
So the prices in the plan are the prices in the plan. They get set and they are constant. The utility default, yes, it can go below the price in the plan, just as, and I don't know whether you have that chart, because it can go below, because we can't,
Yeah, so that's the
Everything-
risk,
but
and
it
you're
is
saying
the
that's
risk.
awfully low.
But there's
But I'm saying
there's
that
no risk because you can leave the plan.
Yeah,
well, you
and
can leave the
delete-
plan, and if you
Yeah, I was
stay
just-
in, like, the design of the program is for long-term savings. Like, we feel confident, for other customers, we do this with confidence, we provide long-term
We can
savings.
create this
So,
ourselves.
but if you're a
Website, so
you know,
people can see.
day trader at home and you like to
Right.
look at your
Auto
electric
debit,
every
you
day,
might
you
wanna
can
look.
you can
Month to
Right.
month.
you
Month
can
to
month
month,
to
it's
right, month
it's a
to
little kludgier than that.
month. Month to month. You can come
Yes.
off the plan if
Yeah.
it goes down, and you can get back onto the plan at
Yes.
any point.
So that could go.
So
on
there
the
is some
government
risk that we
website.
talked about before for owners of solar panels who are net positive producers.
Yeah.
And how they don't get paid for their electricity if they're on this plan that they produce into the grid.
Yeah, for
So-
the net, yeah.
So, I was hoping that we could define a class of people who are net producers and have them as opt-in as opposed to opt-out at the launch of this program.
So, we can't identify them at the moment. The utility can't or won't provide that information. Since there's no timeline for providing it, I don't imagine it would be available in a reasonable timeline for Litchfield's probably going to launch before that's available. It's absolutely an issue. We would have said that the law says they're on default supplies, so they get automatically enrolled. That's the way we launched our first programs. That's the way, we worked with the company Good Energy from Massachusetts. That's the way they read the law, that people if you're on default supply, you are eligible for automatic enrollment. That was our simple interpretation. Our competitors did cut out like chunks of customers, co-op customers and net metering customers, and set them aside. So I guess it must be legal, or, it must work. So, we haven't made that policy change. Wouldn't and can't and won't force you to, do something particular with your net metering customers. So far, it's working fine, I think, with the first group. So, I'm not, at the plan level, not sure, how to, if we could state some flexibility in there, and then, because by the time, again, we'd be sending out letters to customers, we'll have at least 6 months' data from the first group, and we could.
So is it all?
Better.
But you can't, they're not giving you the information to be able to identify who those users are.
They give us,
So-
yeah, right.
So it's a practical problem that you can't create that class then.
Right now, we can't create the class. The question really is, do we opt out all net metering? Well, we can't even, we could not send a letter to net metering customers that we know about, but we don't know, we don't have perfect information from the utility.
Yeah, that's
I
what you were
just said
saying
that,
last
because
time.
that's
That's not
the other
accurate.
thing. Right, we don't, so we just say, we put it on the customer because we don't have perfect information. We talked about this last time, didn't we? 'Cause
Yeah,
This is a
it
really
came
good
up,
point,
yeah.
but maybe we could do more for customers. I guess that's where we left it last
I
time. and-
already brought that up at the last
So
meeting.
I don't, so automatically if the town does this, you're opted onto the plan.
Everyone's opt-in, yeah.
Everyone,
mean-
including people that are on, not just default supply, people that are on contracts, no.
No, they're not, they can enroll, but they're not automatically enrolled.
Anyone that's on a default with Eversource gets automatically enrolled.
Right, and that includes the net metering customers.
But you can only be net metered if you're on the default, right? Or meaning you can't, like, if you're, that only works if you're with, I think, I know this, Eversource only allows you to pay, to supply back into the grid if you're being supplied by them. Otherwise, they won't.
So if you're on this program and you're net metering, you're still sending electricity into the grid, but you're not getting paid for any of it.
Correct.
You're not getting paid for the supply portion of it,
And
which is the bulk of
Eversource
it.
is currently paying for that? They are currently paying.
They pay the net metering, yeah.
So we know that they can because they have their own default supplier,
Mhm.
and they do the, so we know they can do it, and they
They
know
don't.
that we know they can do it.
Right.
So we're hopeful that it's going to get fixed, like this won't be an issue anymore.
Sure.
And we'll do it our way, which is that people are automatically enrolled, and then it works properly. So again, that's another reason we're a little bit sticky about doing it our way, but I understand, like, so we hadn't made any progress on
Okay.
how to.
So, but I just want to understand a little better. You've requested, so Eversource has, theoretically has the data for who's net metering, who's net positive. And you've
Think.
requested that from them and they've denied
You
you?
would think.
No, well, because they sent, so the data that they sent is, includes, one or two columns with net metering information, and it says, it has some information about which tariff they're on. But they said that's not complete, that, and we don't have complete contact information, we can't contact people, like, we have some contact information. So we could say, okay, you're on net metering 2 tariff, we won't automatically enroll you. But now, that's when we've created an expectation that if you're automatically enrolled, we're responsible for knowing. When we can't be responsible, we're not, so we're crystal clear, no, the customer is responsible. We will provide all the support we can, for you. Some customers are fine, and some customers need to opt out, and then we just try and, give them support. Because net metering customers have already made it through putting solar panels on their house. I don't know whether you have solar panels,
Right.
but it is a.
My guess is that the people that have solar.
They're going to be
are-
in tune.
They're going to be looking at it, because they
Yeah.
want to know that they're getting their money back from their solar panels.
Right, and that was
And
the
then they're
concern.
also going to be able to look and say, if our rate's 11 and the utility's at 20 and they're selling back however much, it still may make more sense for them to not get paid back, depending on what the
Yeah, because they won't recoup the savings.
Right.
Yeah.
right. But I don't worry so much. I think as long as we send something out, I don't think that you're going to have a problem. Those are not the people I would worry about, because they're the ones that'll pay attention to it.
Yeah, right. They're going to be paying the most attention for sure. But I'm just wondering if they do miss out a month, they get opted in automatically. And, the first month goes by and they get their bill and they notice, I got $0 for all the electricity that I supplied to the grid. They're going to come complaining to who?
Yeah. Do we have any liability
We-
on that? Like from a municipal standpoint, like if we've now entered into an agreement that's interrupting that benefit to them that they've signed up for, I have no idea. That would be a case law thing. That
But
would
it
be
has
very,
to
very
be-
odd for you to have an example off the top of your head.
Somebody told me in California, people
Yeah, I
put
mean,
all the, I'll let them answer.
I don't-
Let me tell you something.
Anybody can obviously sue anybody for anything. I just think that the hoops you gotta jump through before you get to launch, I mean, there's gonna be public hearings, there's gonna be, select board's gonna have to act on it, it's gonna be voted on at town meeting to then walk into a courtroom and say, I'm damaged X dollars because I got automatically enrolled in this and I didn't realize it. It's like, well, that's you not paying attention. What's sort of the contributory negligence kind of aspect there. So I would say it's not a good claim.
Right.
But
anyone can sue anyone.
could it exist?
What were you gonna
Sure.
say, Kim?
I have two things. One to get back, but I heard a story about California about this, where everybody invested in their solar power and they were getting money back, and the state just made a law that says we're not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
So the state said no, and so you're not getting any money.
That was a regular.
That was a regular thing. So the question was, we could identify who has solar power based on the tax data, the database,
Based
right?
on the based on their permits, yes.
So
If
we
they
don't,
pulled a permit for installing their solar, we would have those records.
so they're gonna get a letter from you.
Mhm.
How many is that? 100 people?
About 200,
That's a lot.
250, if that. If you're talking people that have permits that we haven't finished yet.
Yeah, because we have 96 in assessing, right?
So we don't wanna automatically opt them out. It's up to them. We can't go live and say initially opt these group out, because as we keep doing this contract over years, right, they'd have to be notified all the time, probably. every time we, but anyway, is that something possible? If we could identify, if we've somehow reached out to these 200 people and 100 said, we don't want it, could we give you a list when we first go live?
They
Again,
could
I'm
call.
recalling this
They could call.
conversation.
Wait.
And this is great to have you in the room, because to
Oh, I hate
me,
hearing that.
that opens, so I could see how the town could do supportive information, but I would think the message would be, pay attention to the program, because you're going to be automatically enrolled. You don't want to take a role, because then all of a sudden you've become an actor in their decision. And they could say, oh, I didn't get the notice from the town, and then all of a sudden you've become an actor separate from the program. So I wouldn't recommend
Try to
building
reach
a
out.
list or, anything like that. I just think it would be a courtesy. Any water bill, any sort of notification, any list of contact information that you could use to get information about the program in general, and even specifically to net metering customers to say, pay attention to the mailing, because they'll know they're on Eversource default service. Like, they'll know that's
I
something.
mean, I
that they
think
would know.
including a separate piece of this that just says, do you have solar?
Mm-hmm.
Pay attention. Right? Like,
Yeah, I think a
I
more
like that.
general education
General.
approach would be good. The only, and I do think statutorily you can make it an opt-in. The only thing that would be okay is if you come up with that list, you give it to them, they create that class and say it's opt-in. I wouldn't try to do it on your own as, we're gonna send
No.
letters, we're gonna, it's like, don't weigh in,
We just
publish
identify
that
the class.
information. Just
Yeah.
identify the problem, say, hey, in case anybody's doing this, this could impact that, just like, I mean, there's gonna come with a bunch of warnings anyway, it's, hey, we're talking about a 30-month cycle, and rates could fluctuate, it's just part of the education process for the public in it.
And we do, the
Okay with
kind of, support we give is people call and say, I'm a net metering customer, and I was told to call this number, and we have them look at their bill because they don't even know which tariff they're on, or, what they're, like, people have moved to a house with solar panels or something, they literally don't know what they're paying or who their supplier is. Actually, I just said they'd know that it's Eversource, but they might not. So they still often need to call, and so so that would be the outreach, but that's super interesting, though. I appreciate your input, that they could do that that they could give us we could do a specific outreach to net metering customers through the towns.
Yeah, I possibly, I mean, if that's anything you guys even wanna do, or you can just, like you said, you put the 2-sentence disclaimer on the bottom of it that says, hey, just like all the other concerns, if you have solar, pay attention. I mean, I think that's kind of your easiest, so again, you're not an actor in it. You're not making the call, you're not advising them, hey, we think this is a good idea for everybody except for you, or
No, I know.
financial circumstance and have decided this is good for you, like,
well, because then you run into that problem.
Yeah.
If there's a big delta between the default,
Yeah.
I don't think we want to.
yeah, no.
Yeah, and you're probably right. People who have solar, they're gonna be paying very close attention to
Yeah.
this.
Just for clarification, when you create the community power website, right, whether it's Keene or Marlboro or whatever, and that contains the opt-out forms and all that, is that website being managed by Standard Power? Okay.
Yes.
Um,
So it does send a notice right to the supplier, so there's no delay. We get notified, so we do, quality control or whatever, sweeps to make sure that they handled all the calls that they got, but it goes, there's no time delay to it going right to the supplier.
Is there something in the contract that binds them for any data breaches or anything like that, or indemnifies us?
No.
We should be looking for that.
Yeah, I mean, what do you guys have for protections if there is a data breach?
I don't know.
Alright.
But I mean, if we're not managing it, we should at least be indemnified, I would think.
I would think, but I bet their carrier doesn't like that idea, so.
Well, how would you phrase that question?
Oh, well, it's just, if you guys are the ones managing the data, what insurance, what coverage exists, you know, in case there are claims that come about?
Right, because ultimately,
Then-
if we're in any way facilitating this, and there's a data breach, right, and someone wants to sue, they're gonna name,
They're
anyone
definitely
that's
gonna name the
involved.
town.
But we're gonna get named on that, and I don't know if our insurance really would be very happy with us.
Well, they would
Just
not.
gonna check with them.
We're working on this
I'm gonna-
policy now, yeah.
Yeah, I'll work.
Okay.
Finance.
So, yeah, I mean, if you guys can get us some coverage information, it'd be good.
Yeah, yeah, no, I wrote that down. Just for a couple of, for your peace of mind, we never handle payment information, so that's kind of a nice chunk that we don't have to do. And then the information comes in tranches, so I think there's 3 reports, but I'm familiar with 2. One is that it's aggregated data, so it's by class, so it has a lot of information. It has, I think it even has account numbers, and amount and, cap tags, but it doesn't have any customer information. And then the customer information comes separately for mailing the letters, so those are, so it's also, it's chunked logically, and then, as I said, we pass it through as sort of simply, and, so, you know, I just think that's the safest way to handle things, is to not store them and, or handle them.
Okay, I think I need to be a little more clear. What exactly is the responsibility of the town? Once we launch, what do we have to do?
So, you can just tell us what to do. I mean, really, just, but, okay, the one thing that you really have to do is have a designee available, and it's somewhat flexible, for the indicative pricing and bid day. Someone's gonna sign a contract on bid day, and the days are gone when there's days, you know, when you can look it over for a few hours. It's noon, and the faster we sign them, we get, you know, and typically it'll be a few towns together, you know, have an hour or two. And it's interesting, on municipal schedules, it is, you know, often people are moving things around to do that, so.
So
My-
once
my
a month?
So it's not once a month, it's once a contract, it's
Okay.
2 days apart, it'd be like a Thursday and then a Tuesday or Wednesday, and we have a bunch of people to coordinate, it'll be a designee from town, from each town, and the supplier, and, I mean, we just make ourselves available, but, the supplier mostly, just so that they are ready, you know, we had last minute changes to the electric service agreement, and they can't get it done, and then it's Fridays aren't very good for bidding, so that's the kind of way it changes, or if you have one big town in the group and they can't do Tuesday at 2 to, you know, at noon to 2, then we go to Wednesday, you know, so.
So,
That's the main
It's multiple
lift.
suppliers at that point, or you've,
No, it's multiple suppliers if we can, like,
Right.
yeah, it's a blind competitive bid,
so then one person, one designee, once a contract is all that's required from the town.
So
Well,
let me
my
rewind
under-
for a second.
yeah.
no, there,
So the
yeah.
bids come in from multiple places, and that's, like you said, on that Thursday, is it?
Typically,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
And then that information gets sent to whoever the contact person is in the town.
So they
does
actually
that
are in the meeting. So again, so that's a meeting, it's a group meeting because people, you want to, the group does choose the supplier and the same term. So that is, or they don't participate, that's your choice, or the whole thing fails. But, so that's a meeting that's all together. It's not public. So they collect the information, they share information, we like 17 months, we like 30 months, we like this supplier, we like that supplier. Usually it's the basic, usually everyone goes for the best price, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
And then there's a few days to the actual bid day where we just go back to the suppliers, say, we're going, this group is ready to go, we like the prices, we want you to sharpen your pencils on next Tuesday. And that's bid day. So in between, so it's not public information. It's not something that if you share the information, you can make the bid fail, because it's a blind bid. But you could have like a closed door session like you just did. You could have a closed door
Yeah, you
session.
could do a
if-
non-public meeting
you
with the
know,
select
so
board
that
and
would
then-
be the selectmen, you know, could have a meeting where they look at and kind of agree on the indicative pricing and going forward.
Correct me if I'm wrong, cause I remember this conversation with a couple of the towns that went through this. There was a town manager, town administrator, or whomever that was in the meeting that was relaying it back to the select board that was in a non-public session, and they had a vote.
Mhm.
And then the problem was who signed the document? Right?
Well, there,
And I know at least in one case, it was a town administrator that was there, that was designated by the board, told to sign the document. And that's how they happened to do it.
yeah, that should be fine.
It has to be a vote of the board, and then the person that is signing the document has to be
Yeah, I mean,
Doesn't
how you'd
mean-
handle that is, you know, the motion be, we've received the indicative pricing.
Yeah.
Company X has X amount of months, Y is the rate. You know, we move to, you know, approve that and designate, whether it's you or anybody, to sign off on that unless there's a dramatic change of 10% or more or something on the rate or something.
because
know,
you
just-
only had
We
you
don't,
only had hours.
if they change like that, the bid
Yeah,
fails.
yeah,
We would
yeah.
go for another week. It doesn't fail forever.
Yeah.
Like, we could see what's happening, but we don't, you know, kind of tolerate that kind of.
Yeah.
So
So
they're,
you do
But
that.
my, from what I was told, you had a matter of hours, like an hour.
Right,
It was a
once
very
they put in
small
their
window.
best and final
Yes.
bid, if you say, well, we need a day, then that's gonna be higher.
Yeah,
You know, they don't,
yeah.
you know,
To
they're
choreograph that.
so you need them physically, somebody physically there,
physically there. Well,
somebody physically signing it.
And you
Physically
need- And the
in-
board needs to be
And we
somewhere
need
to
the
have a
nod
vote.
from-
Well, so, but the board can do its vote before. That's up to the board. I'm saying the board can be involved in that way, but, you know, that, you can hear the complication in that. They could also just set parameters before and say, because we
Oh,
do
okay.
pricing
Like
all
what
the
you just said,
time.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
we probably
gotta see a
know a few
rate
weeks
plan.
ahead whether
Yeah.
we're in
Yeah,
the,
yeah.
you know, 9 or 10 or
Gotcha.
11 cent range. We'll know. So the board may just say, we designate, you know, the
X.
person who typically signs contracts in the town to, you know, go through
An
this
X and X.
process and then,
Makes sense.
So,
Yeah.
a
That
point
makes
that we were
sense.
discussing before related to the class, like residential versus commercial.
Yeah, how did that get identified? It says like residential,
G
commercial.
meters.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I just learned this, G meters are for under, 100 kilowatt, service for 6 months, or if you have over 100 kilowatts spikes twice in 6 months, then you can get jumped to GV.
Okay.
So there's a different rate for each of those?
So, the default service rate, the 12.58 is both for G and R. So there's different classes of customers, but so our meters at your home, there's no demand charges, but you might, if you have a G meter, which again, people are pulling up their bills and realizing they're paying demand charges, which are usurious, they're horrible, on a garage or on a business, and they're related to your peaky demand, like your demand, like how much do you use in the most you use in an hour.
So I'm the school board rep, so, which I have not really paid attention to that component of this at all, which I really should be, because they're gonna ask me about this. So, we have one school that has solar panels that has a power purchase agreement, so that would be not a part of this,
Probably not.
probably. The other two schools that don't have solar, those would be, again, you're saying at the same rate as,
But they might have competitive supply.
Right.
okay,
Already. I mean, they might work with us for competitive supply already.
okay.
I have to check.
And something like that would not be, they would, okay, so they'd be all set, they wouldn't need to look at that.
Right, but if they weren't on competitive supply and couldn't do better on competitive supply than on the community power program, then they could join, and it's just the supply portion, so the demand charges aren't affected by community power. But maybe the knowledge would be, you know, like if, you know, you hand us some bills and, you know, we might be able to
Is competitive supply usually better than these types of?
It depends on the customer. So for municipal customers, because your demand, well, we're here this evening, but often it's a lot of daytime load. So often municipal customers can get better than residential load, which peaks in the morning and at the peakier time. So we're not, in our limited time doing this now in New Hampshire, like in real time, the prices are looking pretty similar. It's pretty interesting. We thought there'd be more of a premium for community power over, the pricing we're seeing for commercial, industrial, municipal, and it's, not too bad. So, it's interesting. I don't know what it means, but, it might mean that they're good programs, that the pricing is, going forward is level, that the suppliers are confident that their programs aren't gonna fail or, be underwater, they're not gonna do anything risky, unexpected.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, I
So,
was gonna ask.
does anyone else have any other questions? I was wondering, what is it that we have to do tonight? Do we need to approve a draft plan before we go to
I
public hearing?
I think that
we should get
that needs to be redlined.
George.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So we
and
have some
there was gonna be
comments.
some edits.
Yeah, they've made
From
some
them.
edits
Okay.
that we haven't seen in the portal, I believe.
Well, so there was that town to program switch. We're gonna get that information about, their coverage for the data aspect, all that you should know before you vote on anything.
Right, so can we go to public hearing without having a draft plan approved?
I think we can.
'Cause our
Right?
next-
If it's just a standard education on what community power is, and
Well, I mean, the statute just provides for public hearings to occur, so,
So we don't need to,
and I assume you guys would do some sort of presentation at that, right?
Yeah.
And then you're just getting the feedback. I mean, you're already doing the survey, can't hurt to do the public hearing too, to really hear on these points and again, talk about the second versus the lowest one and,
yeah.
all that. I mean, wouldn't be bad to do that, and that way you guys can see how quick you can move it,
Okay, so then we can still stay on our schedule.
What's your schedule?
It's
We
it's
had,
in the- it's in the portal.
So that-
It's done by next week.
We had a public hearing scheduled for November
Starts in
20th.
15 minutes.
So
Hope you're
if the public hearing isn't contingent upon the draft plan,
That's correct.
then I don't believe that the Board of Selectmen need to see the draft plan yet either. We're still working on it. And
Yeah, I
think
mean, the
that's
creation
fine.
of the plan is, the public hearings occur during the creation of the plan, so yeah, you wouldn't need it
So-
to them unless.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
gonna-
in that regard, I guess the public hearing is more important, because if the feedback at the public hearing was no, then why are we gonna work on a draft plan?
Yeah,
That was my concern. Are we setting a precedence by saying, hey, we're gonna be doing this, come in and join? But if the public,
But
well,
we're not
if
really
only
saying that
10 people,
yet.
but 10 people could show up and not want it, but it doesn't represent the community
We're just
either.
asking the public, is there something you're
I'm good for
interested
the
in?
education
It's supposed to
aspect.
Either way, right? Yeah, so I mean,
Right, we're not
There-
really
there's
saying that
many
yet.
other public involvement points.
Mhm.
And the presentation is like 16 slides or something, so it takes between 12 and 14 minutes. So it is informational, though. I mean, it is fine to, and if someone says, where's your plan, then we can take their contact information, or, but there's a way to involve them. Often there's like up to 1 or 2 people who actually read the plan and come. They're more interested in asking questions of
Right.
the.
Right,
the
they don't wanna
committee-
be bogged down with the
committee too, And
details.
of the, they wanna know what's going on, so.
what is the balance for, how much work do we hire you to do leading up to the warrant versus it could fail, right? And then have we done a disservice to the town by paying to have all of this redlined and, or like, cause I
That's
don't.
gotta be final by the time you get to the town meeting vote, so I mean, the plan's gonna be set
Gotcha.
in stone ahead of time, so
Right.
that's just sort of.
Yeah, that makes sense, yep.
And really anything that required a warrant article and a plan or a document or anything, it would standard, it's standard for the town to have council go
Yeah.
through it. so.
Not trying to.
I had a
catch
Litchfield day today. I did, you know? It wasn't just this.
Yeah, we're not concerned about costs, we're concerned about liability.
you. Right.
So, the 10 days, right?
Yeah, good time.
So that
I
would
think
be
the
tomorrow.
public hearing was originally set for November 20th.
Right.
Are you guys even open tomorrow?
So we've got a lot of public hearings coming up.
Yeah, so
SIP,
public hearing's gonna get
planning board.
bounced.
So
Wow.
I think the first date that we originally thought on the 20th isn't realistic.
Yeah, just do it to 27th.
20 I think we said the 28th was the set, and then the next date that was available, because the 27th is a Board of Selectmen night here. So I would say we have the first one then, so that I have time to publicly notice it.
Yeah, that makes sense to me as long as it fleshes out the rest of the way,
And then
because
we'll
you had,
have
we
to
had
have
to,
another one. Well, so part of the issue that we were playing with here is that the Budget Committee wants warrant articles by December 14th.
right, so we were gonna approve a plan on the 5th, but now we won't be having had a second public hearing by then, probably.
Can I go to that first board, the hearing? Is that the same night as the Board of Selectmen? Will it be during that meeting?
No, the public hearing was set for Tuesday, November 28th. We're meeting the 27th.
27, okay, good.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were trying to get the board updated at the same time. We're having the public hearing. I mean, if you can
I'd
do
love
that.
to get all the meetings on the
Be
same
great.
night. so-
We have a long day that day.
Your turn.
All right, so separate, good, all right.
Yes.
I don't care, but.
So there needs to be two.
It says public hearings. So, I mean,
Right? Isn't that?
Yes,
what
and
Sandra
I
Fowler
hate,
told us.
we have done them on the same day. Done a day, a noon and 6, but I recommend, like I do, your instinct to do them a week apart or some period apart is,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I mean, we got a couple weeks before the 28th, so hopefully we can take care of some of this, and then do the 28th and the 5th, and then you guys meet on the 12th, and.
well, the
or-
other thing is, I don't know what you're doing on the 5th, but you could, if you have a quorum at the hearing, you
Right.
could
You could-
approve
Prove
the
it
plan.
at the second hearing.
Yeah, at the
We
second
could, yeah,
hearing.
we could, if
So-
we're already meeting on the 5th, right, we could do a public hearing on the 5th and then vote on the 5th.
Yeah,
Well, then you gotta get it in front of the select board, right?
and then the
But
select board would vote
Then
on
the
the
select
11th
board
and we'd
meets
be
on
on
the
track.
11th.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
So
committee
the
approves
select
it
board's
first.
gonna do all the.
pressure's on
warrant
Joe.
articles.
Yeah. They would- and
Yeah.
then
All the
they'd-
pressure's on
Well,
Joe.
cause then it would kick then it would go to your budget committee on the 14th.
On the 14th.
That is
yeah.
tight. But I do like that they have a week to let it resonate. They'll watch the
Yeah,
video,
me too.
you know, and it is a busy
And then
time of
they'll come
year.
Back with more
right?
comments, they've had
Yeah,
thought
they have a
about it.
chance to watch it and then
They're
come
gonna
up.
be busy
with
with
it.
us on the school.
They're gonna be busy with, I know, holidays,
And
but
there's nothing to say that between the 11th when the Board of Selectmen see it and the 14th when the Budget Committee sees it, something doesn't come up before it goes to town meeting,
Mhm.
right? I mean, it could. It's not like it.
Hmm.
Something.
And you
could
have the
come up.
draft, you have the warrant article and the blurb, right? Do you have a draft warrant
Yes.
article? Okay, so you have that
Yes.
language. I think the one danger of the compressed schedule is that the select board, you do, I don't know how many people are on your select board, but sometimes people don't like the surprise of the opt-in, and so they might abstain or something like that. You might get a, you know, I don't know when the vote to put it on the warrant article happens. Would that be at that meeting?
It would be on that meeting, the 11th,
Okay.
yes.
But you
And-
could definitely.
But they are aware, the select board
Okay, so
had
that's
the
good,
original
yeah.
presentation by
Yeah.
standard power, they, you
Okay.
know,
Yeah, because it's nice to have, you know, was adopted unanimously by the select board, not to, you know, if there was a,
3 abstain.
you know, it's
And
just
Kim
nice to.
updated.
Kim was one of them.
No, it's absolutely people's right, but, you know, and when you surprise them with something, then,
Right.
but,
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys could get them an update on it on the 27th.
oh, we
but
do.
that-
We
Oh, we
update
do
them all the
every
time,
meeting.
and one of the other
Yeah.
members works in the field. With energy, not energy, but more of electronics, so, but yeah, all for it. I'm
Yeah.
not speaking for them, but he
Right.
was part of this original committee as well.
yeah.
He's not here tonight,
I'm
so,
not-
but he's on the committee as well.
Okay, so
has.
good, so that's nice, and then the.
So he didn't, I
and
didn't
then
hear him say anything.
Usually the planning board doesn't vote on it, but, you know, it's kind of the thing where if you test the waters and they're gonna support it, then that would be nice, but.
We better have a
Can you say
quorum that
planning
night.
board? Oh, budget committee, I'm sorry, budget committee, yeah.
Yeah. Tell them we need
You know,
5 people there, so we don't have a tie, right? Not that I expect it, but we need a quorum.
I don't see how this would impact, like, how the budget committee would have negative
Yeah.
feelings about this.
Shouldn't cost anything.
I don't.
I don't see how it impacts.
But you know, you came up with the same questions we came up with the last couple of months, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, you're a quick learner and everything, so you're seeing the pitch, but you came in like big questions, big holes, right? And then as you put it together, you said,
Yeah.
at the end, you said, you know, makes
Yeah, that's-
sense.
yeah.
Risk is low, yeah.
So we
Risk
want
is-
that same, the public's gonna go through that same process and calculus,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Well, what was really helpful was understanding example rates, right? Like 11 versus 20.
Right.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, so we need to get scenarios ready for the board, you know, in this scenario, do this and this, you know.
That's a real scenario.
That's for the-
that
that's
was
for the
at
public.
The time
So-
that those 4 towns
Mhm.
you know, signed up, it was 11 versus 20. So now it's 11 versus 12, but still.
Yeah, but that's the
Still-
volatility of the utility
still
default,
sa- and they're
and
still
it's
saving.
still, yeah,
Right.
yeah. And-
And you have the guarantee at launch of being
Right.
low.
Well, and I think we have to
just-
put out as much as possible.
So when you were talking about the bid piece,
Mhm.
it's a collective that's going in there and negotiating it. The town doesn't have to agree to that. Can they agree to a different one, or is it just they can't do, it's either you're agreeing to this one that everybody's for, or you're not doing it at all on this cycle?
Well, on that cycle, probably the former.
Okay.
I think it is that's the point of indicative pricing is, are we moving forward as a group? And I think we can, you know, the groups typically could tolerate someone saying, I'm not ready, or I don't like the terms of the group or whatever, but does have a group feel where once you see the price, like, we're talking about this hypothetically, which is the other way it's more difficult to understand, but when you see prices, you're like, yeah, you know, like, then you're ready to go. So then the group is motivated to move together, and they tend to, because the 30 months was surprising to me, actually, that the first group chose 30 and not 17, because you'd think, well, they'd choose the shorter one just to see, you know, like, you know, and they were like, no, we don't want to go to pricing again in a year, which is the, and I think, you know, well, we have lots of people calling those towns too for references, so, and they seem, you know, happy still.
So again, the only other piece that we were kind of covering was the termination aspect of that, which we kind of glossed over a little bit, but
Yeah, let me dive a little deeper, and if I can like grab your card or something, if I just have a couple questions about that, I can shoot you an email.
because it would be unfortunate to get to a point where it's like, if, you know, let's just say we were 8 months into a 30-month contract and it went, like, really was just trending off for a really long time. Do you want to be able to?
I think the contract length is the contract length. I mean, I don't think that is, I think it's pretty, I don't know what the term, unbreakable in that sense. So.
Can you guys renegotiate rates at it? Like, cause like I know with like
Not there- I think the contract length is the contract, like, I think that's, actually, that was me, right?
that seems like an odd, that seems like such an odd play though, because if the users can just jump ship, right? It would seem like it would be like, because I know like Direct Energy does this with me, right? I'm locked in for 24 months, but if I call them because I can cancel, they'll be like, oh, we'll just move you to the lower rate. Like, we'd rather just still supply to you than not supply to you at all. So it just seems like such an odd play to say, oh no, that's the rate, and then they're like the only ones that lose out are the utility and you.
Well, that's how most municipal, commercial, industrial, you know, small to mid customers work now. You just, if you want a year contract, then that's what you get, and you get a price, but if you want the best price we can get, then it's typically longer, and then you
Right,
just
but it just
forget
seems,
it.
but it just,
I know, and it's
oh,
not
so
breakable,
it's-
but I'm saying that is that's how they shave price off the front, is that you're not going to come back and renegotiate.
But you can leave though, and still, and then they get nothing.
Individual customers can leave, and then we only work with suppliers that do this, like
Yeah.
do municipal aggregations, so they know as a practical matter, customers don't
Gotcha.
leave.
Yeah, that's more of an irrelevant observation on my part, so we don't have to focus on it.
Yeah, no, but you're examining all the options, and that's the,
One more
but
minor
it's a good
question.
point, that the contract is the contract, like, it is that's it for the period.
Mhm.
So that's one consideration when you're choosing contract, like,
Thank you.
So I was writing down concerns before. I think we have them all, and even this one, but I just want to validate with Joe. Roles and responsibilities, I think we're okay with that now, right? Most of it.
Yeah, we
it was
got some
really the
clarity,
help.
and there's gonna be some edits to,
Okay,
from town to program, they're basically the program, right?
so if somebody's calling to
Yeah.
That'll be a
complain now, who do
defined
they
term.
call?
Mhm.
Them? If we have somebody who's, I won't say disgruntled, but somebody wants to make a complaint or something, do they call you? Is that the number?
yes,
Or do they call the
so,
town?
So they'll call whoever they call,
Right.
but we can, basically, you could tell them to call the supplier or to call us.
Right.
Usually, the supplier is how they get the fastest answer. That's who can tell them what's going on with their account. So if they call us, we have to, it just adds some difficulty for them. So we're not trying to brush them off. We just are not a better customer service person than the supplier. But we do field calls. We do help people through, they'll have 2 meters, or they'll have, net metering or something else. And so the supplier, sometimes they'll call the utility, but the utility can't help them with everything. So they're not, and us, they can go online. Net metering customers is a fact sheet, so they can get a lot of information from that. Regular customers can get other information.
So
So we'll give you a little script, but,
Right.
but yeah, the customers do call
It's a
who they call. And we just try and put the direct, the supplier number up high, because that's really where they can get
And
the,
that's on the bill, they can see it?
Um,
The 1-800 number or
yeah,
whatever?
it'll be on, exactly, yes, it's on the
Okay, so
bill
they
and on
can
the
call you
website.
directly, good.
Yes,
So that
yeah.
should get them out the traffic out of your lane.
Yeah, that is
Okay.
the number on the bill is the supplier.
Okay, I
Yeah.
didn't know they had that information on it.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So then we're on track to meet on the 20th. We're gonna have not a public hearing on the 20th.
all right, we could just keep that meeting as a meeting.
So we'll have a
for
meeting.
The rest of the plan.
Everyone will have a chance to make their edits to this, and we'll all come back with it. We'll discuss those changes. And then we'll have our first public hearing on the 28th, and our second on the 5th, where we will have a vote. Okay.
That'll give us time to notice it.
We get automatically invited to these things, right? I'm still getting all my boards. I'm like trying to keep
Yeah,
track
so-
of all these meetings.
We just got your
Okay.
Litchfield
It popped up.
School
It popped up for me,
District.
so I just want to make sure that when
Yes.
those other ones, they'll just pop on my.
They will, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and then actually, you were saying, the select board vote on the 11th? Or,
On the 11th, yeah.
I'm just writing this down too.
So December 5th was what again? The second, the actual,
Second.
The,
all right, so we won't be
Second
at the
public
planning
hearing.
board that night.
It'll be an evening.
you have a what?
The planning board's that night, but we won't be there.
Oh,
Unless, what time's the meeting? December 5th's
I
a
think
Tuesday,
we
right?
said 5 or
We're gonna start at 5?
5:30.
Okay, good, then we can still.
5 or 5:30 because of the planning board.
Because we have some big
But
things
we
going
weren't
on over
thinking
there.
it was gonna
as
be a
well.
public hearing,
On the
which is
5th?
longer.
We have some
You're talking about the
controversial things coming on the 5th.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I have a committee meeting until 6.
So,
I can be here. At
Is that
6.
the only day available in the town calendar? I know, we're getting down to, is it because
That's the
is it because
challenge I
of
found.
needing cable? Is it because we only have so many camera crews, or it's a
Fifth.
room?
rooms, I think
And,
it's, we are out of rooms.
So fire station, no?
I can go over to,
The 5th is the second public hearing and the vote, and then the Board of Selectmen would approve it on the 11th, and then budget on the 14th.
So that means,
so, the 5th. School board.
Selectmen,
what Looks like it's coming to the selectmen meeting.
Well,
Get it all over.
there's a meeting every single night.
Have the public hearing during the
That's
selectmen
what I'm saying. If
meeting.
it's
We'll all
legal,
just vote.
why not? It's gonna be a long night anyway.
Yeah, I'll have to look more into that.
Okay. But we're still on for a meeting here, the 20th, not a public hearing. And then we'll figure more out from there.
And someone's gonna send me a red line version of the,
I'll be the one to do that.
Oh,
so you guys
20th.
get me stuff and
Okay.
your thoughts, and I can.
That's a
incorporate
tough
Are you on the portal? Because George already wrote up a lot of comments.
Oh, he's already got that.
Okay.
I
I have
sent that
George's.
to
Okay,
George.
it. And
I
have
sent
my
George's.
thoughts, but I now definitely need to revise a lot
we
of
gave
that.
you a Word version, right, not
Yeah.
not a PDF.
Okay.
Oh,
Just-
December.
it's hard
Okay,
to
that's nobody
scrape
at
it
that
back
meeting.
to Word and then,
Oh, yeah,
What
that
is
starts a real
quarterly?
disaster.
Well-
I mean, it's, you know, still funny. I don't know whether you have old versions on there or anything.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm getting punchy, guys.
tired.
I don't know if I could wrap this up.
He said all the
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah, we're coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's no more questions, then we can just move on.
Just what time is it on the 20th? I have NRPC quarterly, but
So we had said the 7th on the 20th, but 7.
for the public to come, right? They're at work, so
Right,
they have to come
but
in after.
If we're not gonna have that as a public hearing, we can meet earlier. I know we've liked to meet earlier.
Yeah.
But can,
Really, it makes no difference to me.
but what about the
Right.
public? They might want to be here after work.
Well, it's not a public.
Oh, it's not the public one?
not
Okay,
the
sorry.
public.
All right.
Yeah, that's just your next meeting.
Okay, gotcha, sorry.
So we're good.
So would you like to move to
I
6?
just wanted to ask you one more thing. When can you get us the results of the survey?
I can,
I can-
tomorrow, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're not here tomorrow, so, but I can reach out to Teresa, cause
Okay,
I
yeah.
did talk to her.
Okay,
So I think she's working on it. I talked to her and Ryan earlier today, so.
okay. Well, and there's the two issues. Now I can
Yeah.
see where they wrote them, but. Oh, yeah. And survey results.
So,
Okay.
We can at
then-
least get you an update though shortly.
Yeah, that'd be
like-
great, as soon as
whoever-
possible,
Yeah.
yeah.
So survey
Okay,
update, because it depending on how many responses there,
Right.
I don't know what, kind of outreach channels you have, but you might wanna ping it again depending on what the response.
yeah, and now knowing maybe we can extend the survey? Because we only closed it early because we thought we had to approve something today. We had originally had it all the way to the 20th, I think.
Probably Teresa
But-
didn't close the survey, but we do need to get those questions changed, but, yeah, we tend to leave it open, like, we'll set a
Okay.
deadline and then extend it.
So it's still
typically.
open? People
It's
can
still
submit it?
open. I mean, I'm
But-
sure that
it's not,
we don't set a, like, timer on it or anything.
Yeah, okay.
For that reason, that people will respond to a deadline, so we get a bump, but then often we
did you,
extend it if there's not enough
Mm-hmm.
responses.
so the link on the website, when, did you
Pop up.
click it? Okay, but did you click it and go in and take the survey?
Yeah.
Are you sure those questions? Because those questions were done by Teresa. The questions
Well,
in the
we're gonna
survey
investigate
monkey.
tomorrow and make sure that the links
Yeah.
that are
Yeah.
are
We'll look,
around
okay,
are-
we'll look into it.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I believe that would be correct. I could see where the pop-up might be wrong.
That's the one I was looking at.
The pop-up
Okay.
might be wrong, but when you go in to take the survey, it could be right, because the survey's in Survey Monkey. That, I just think the
I
pop-up
clicked the
might
po-
be wrong.
What do you mean
Yeah.
by that? There was one, I clicked on it, but it didn't do anything. But then I went to a second one that did. I'm not sure where I'm being navigated to.
So,
I think it was
we'll
fixed.
figure it out
Yeah,
and
we'll
make
figure
sure
that
that
all
you
out.
have fresh links to if
Yeah,
know,
thank you.
to fix all of that. So I'm sorry.
Thanks very
Have to
much,
go.
yeah, appreciate it. So we'll see
Thank
you
you,
on the
very
20th.
informative.
Will it be you on the 20th when we meet?
We have a lot of meetings going on,
Yeah.
so it will be. I mean, there.
Okay,
I can
yeah.
look now. I can look now.
You almost got out of here. She's like, you won't be.
No, how about
Still be here, so. I'm just gonna roll in and
Okay, hang on, I'm just gonna stay here. Okay, so the
Survey's still
November, right,
coming up.
November 20th.
Yeah.
I already have Litchfield on here. Oh, but I do have oh no, you know what, I have a conflict. So, and I don't know how to see
So,
my
yeah.
colleagues, so I will
So
have to
maybe
figure it
someone
out.
else. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, well,
I
either
had
way,
one that
that's
was
all good.
delayed, so, what time, cause it's, yeah, you said like seven.
7 we have it set at right now.
Okay, well, I don't have that too.
Just pick them one. 5.
Yeah, it hasn't been edited.
Oh, that's a Survey Monkey problem. I'll call Teresa tomorrow.
Okay.
It's a Survey Monkey.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes,
Okay.
very
See you
informative.
next time.
Nice to see you
or
all.
someone.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Okay, so we still have the approval of the minutes from October 24th.
You wanna wait for them to be here?
Yeah, we should probably wait for George
And
and
Eric-
Eric,
and Eric,
so
yeah.
we'll table the minutes.
I assume you don't need me anymore, right?
We always need you.
Here, thank
We
you.
do. No, you brought up great
Probably 8
points.
o'clock tomorrow morning though.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, you're good to go if you want. Thank you.
Thank you
You
for
guys
everything.
have a good rest of your meeting.
Yep,
I
you
think
too.
it's ending.
Yeah, the only
Good.
other thing is
Hopefully you didn't have too many agenda items.
next steps and timeline review we did. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Kim made a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, abstain. Motion passes.
Oppose.
4.
4?
5 or 4?
Did you, are you, do you vote?
4 of you.
4
No,
0
just
0.
Aaron and I
Yeah.
are non-voting. We're just
4 0 0.
Staff
Thank you,
members.
everyone. Good night.
I'm feeling bad for
That was a
Matt-
whirlwind.
Matthew.